Kia ora. So this is our cultural values kind of assessment report produced by our hapu. Our team has sort of put this together over the last few months to talk about our mahi with the Cycleway and the Eden Crescent Bridge. So what I'm going to do today is just give you a bit of a kōrero. It's all done in Te Reo Māori because that was my instructions to the team, and I'm really pleased with the result that's come through. It's based on a Hangarau perspective rather than looking at templates of other CVAs or CIAs. It's actually just taken Hangarau kōrero, looked at the cultural values inside that kōrero, and tried to put that kōrero to our mahi that we've been doing. So this is what the result of that mahi is. So he wai, he repo, it is water, it is a swamp, it is a wetland. That's what that means. Ngāti Hangarau. He kōrero tikanga, so tikanga based kōrero. So this first slide is he ngiri. This is one of our old waiata. It relates us to the Waikato people, especially Te Wherowhero, our first king, and Te Waharoa, who held mana over all of Tauranga Moana for a time there at the start of the king movement. So the first part of the report is the taki, is the introduction or the starting kōrero. So we have here, we have our pepeha, then we go into just a brief explanation of what's going on. So e whai ake nei ko e tehi kōrero whakamarama nei ngā aronga tikanga o Ngāti Hangarau. So following in this report is explanations about Hangarau tikanga. Ka whakahangai nei tikanga ki ngā. So it relates to our mahi with the Cycleway at Carmichael Reserve, and also to the bridge at Eden Crescent. The goal of this plan is to help people who don't understand Ngāti Hangarau tikanga. So that's Pākehā, that's people who have never been to Bethlehem before, and that's even some of our own people who don't have a real depth of engagement in our tikanga. It's how to help them to understand right and faithfully what our tikanga is, so that they don't fall into they don't fall into problems, and if they do, that there's a way to make them better. So in these previous years we've been talking about the Carmichael Road project, and it was a little bit of a surprise to us that it was coming through our rohe, but hoi anō we carried on. So over 2020 to 2022 we've begun to talk back and forward about this kaupapa, or these kaupapa. So the cycle mahi, the cycle lane starts out in Perirako, out o Mokoro as far as we know, and then it comes through along the coastway from Te Puna and to Wairoa and through Ngāti Kahu, and then it comes into the Ngāti Hangarau rohe, and it comes to this Carmichael place, this really special place where you can see straight down to the maunga from Carmichael Road. And then we understand carries on into Ngai Tamarawaho and into town. So this talks about the specific part of the Ngāti Hangarau part of it, and specifically about the Carmichael Reserve. Whai pepa Carmichael ki taki kataika. Ka hanga ngā kōrero ki tēnei takiwa. So this is about our section of the Cycleway. Our king said, King Tuheitia Potato Te Whero, gave us some direction this year in his speech at his coronation celebrations. He says, tikanga is paramount in Te Ao Māori and dictates how we interact with who and when. It's about doing what's right for the collective, not just the individual. So that was a part of our King's speech from this year, giving us some direction, some clear direction on how important tikanga is for us. So we will talk about that in the next coming pages. Part 2, he o haki. So this is called he kōrero ahurea. These, what we've done is our team have taken kōrero from our waiata, from our haka, from our karakia, from our mōteatea, and whakatauki proverbs as well, and they've sort of got those lyrics, got those lines, got those proverbs, and wānanga those things, made the explanations come through so that they can hāngai to our mahi that we're doing. So 2.1, ka tika atu au te haere ki te puke pūra rungai hauturu. This was a lament written by anu our tūpuna called Te Pakaru, who spent much of his time up in the kaimais and over the other side of the kaimais as well. So it says, tikanga will help us achieve our goals. So 2.1, wani o wakato, mā ngā tikanga tātou e aruhi roto I o tātou mai. So tikanga should always be before us whenever we do our mahi. 2.1.2, matua rā ko ngā tikanga Ngāti Hangarau. So Ngāti Hangarau tikanga is paramount because Ngāti Hangarau has mana whenua here. Point 3, pēnā he kore e te ki ngā tikanga me ki māramatanga. So if people don't know about tikanga, they should actively try to look for the tikanga involved with the mahi that they're doing. And only the mana whenua can provide that explanation, that direction, that guidance. Point 4, he tikanga mo tēnā mahi mo tēnā mahi. So different mahi have their own tikanga, especially when we relate to things with the environment. Ngāti Hangarau should have the opportunity to be able to explain this when it needs to be explained to the right people. So the earlier we know when things are happening, the easier it will be for us to organise a time where we can apply the right tikanga to that mahi and let the right people know. 2.2, hea te waharoa ngaringa ngā whatu. This comes from the ngeri that we saw on the previous pages. And it says good leadership and lots of hard work. So point 1, me whai koha ki ngā rangatira me ngā tohunga. So our rangatira and our tohunga are the ones that lead our mahi, and they're the ones that give us direction. So those people who are sitting in the hui and providing the direction, we need to listen to the direction that they give. Kei ngā tohunga ngā māramatanga ki ngā mātauranga. And so our people who sit in these positions, governance positions, the people who write our plans, they are the ones that show us the way. And 2.3, e rawa pōhehe, be gone with misunderstanding, so we need to learn from our mistakes. Point 1, ki te taka ki te he, ki te kore rane, me whai wā tātou ki te kiti I te takinga mai o taua he. So if we fall into problems, into troubles, should be time for us to reflect and see what actually went wrong. So we can look towards making things better if things go wrong. Point 2, we should always respect one another. Different people have different perspectives, and everyone should have that kind of respect. Point 3, ki te kore tete ki ngā tikanga whakahaere kau e haere rungi te pōhehe. If you don't know the right things to do, don't go, the Pākehā word is, don't go in ignorance, but try to clear that ignorance before engaging in the mahi that you do. Point 4, ko te reo Māori, te reo tuatahi o te whenua, o te rohe. So if things are written, like this report is written in te reo Māori, the way that it's portrayed is that it should be in te reo Māori. So we need to realise that this tikanga is a tikanga that's grown in te reo Māori, it's delivered in te reo Māori. If it gets translated into English like what I'm doing now, it's not a true reflection of what the actual tikanga is. So there's a bit of loss in the translation. So if something's in te reo Māori, that's the main language. Any other language is secondary to that. Point 5. Kare Ngāti Hangarau e whakai ki ngā mahi huna. Ngā mahi au ka tirani I tō mātou rotunga ki ngā wā. Ngāti Hangarau does not want to be stopped from having access to our wāhi tapu, our wāhi kai. So whenever we do mahi, we shouldn't be blocking Ngāti Hangarau access to conduct our tikanga in these areas. Moves us on to 2.4. Tāruna tia ki te muka tūwao kia pai atu koe. So this comes from one of our main waiata, written by Turupa, and it talks about teamwork. So point 1, ka tika ngā hui ki ngā tāngata e panga tō rātou ki ngā mahi. Kia whai wā ngā tāngata katoa ki te tuki o rātou kōrero. So when we have hui, everybody who wants to have a say, who needs to have a say, should have the opportunity to have their say when we have our hui. Point 2, kia mātou ngā tangata katoa, hea ha hoki te tūranga o tēnā tangata o tēnā tangata, hea hoki tōna mahi o na haipapa. So it should be clear who has what mahi, who has what responsibilities, so that we all know where everybody fits in. Point 3, whakawhanaungatanga. There should always be an opportunity when someone new comes for whakawhanaungatanga, so that there's a chance to make a connection. If there's a whānau connection, if there's a whakapapa connection, or if there's some sort of connection to be made, then we should pursue that whakawhanaungatanga. With all kaimahi, with all workers, with all our hui, there should be an opportunity for whakawhanaungatanga. 2.5, e tipu waru e. Be ready for the summer influx. This comes from our anthem from Ngāti Hangarau. Ko Hangarau tēnei, this is Hangarau. So point 1, me tika te whakarite ngā mahi I mua I te whakatūwhiratanga, so we need to make sure that we're all ready, all prepared, all things are right before we do our opening. Point 2, ka whai wā hoki a Ngāti Hangarau ki te taki haere I te huarei I mua I te marea. So Ngāti Hangarau people should have the opportunity to be able to walk this kaupapa, this path, before the public, so that we can do what we need to do. Point 3, he wahanga no kia whai whakaro tātou ki ngā mahi tāpoi a Ngāti Hangarau te mare, te wharikura ki o mano anoki. So if there's opportunities for Ngāti Hangarau to pursue our commercial activities in this area, so, incorporating our cruise ship visits to our visitors to the marae, our other tourist ventures at o Manawa and also at the wharikura, if there's an opportunity for Ngāti Hangarau to find benefit for ourselves and for the community, that's something worth exploring. Point 4, kia wāti mai e te he whakaro ki ngā mahi whakatupu pūtia a Ngāti Hangarau I te taki wānei. If there's other avenues for doing community work, for raising funds for the community, for the hapu, for other things, those are ideas that we'd like to pursue as well. 2.6, ka tutuki, aha ko te takaroa. It will be accomplished no matter how long it takes or how hard it is. So point 1, whaia kia tutuki ka wea hauraro. Carry on pursuing the mahi, do not give in. Point 2, ka tika hoki ngā tikanga whakahaere. So make sure we follow the right tikanga when we are planning these things. He he paia ke te takaro me te mautonu ki ngā tikanga. It's better to do things right and take a little bit longer than to take shortcuts and do things wrong just to get it done quickly. So that's 2.6. 2.7, arahina ngā tamariki ngā tamariki o Ngāti Hangarau. A big thing that's come out in our hapu management plan and in all our plans is something for our rangatahi. So that's our rangatahi, our next generation coming through, our kids and our teenagers. Point 1, me whai wā hoki ngā tamariki o Ngāti Hangarau ki te mai iete o ngā mahi. If there's an opportunity for the kids, for our youth to participate in the mahi, then let's take that opportunity and let them do that. Point 2, me whai whakaro o tātou heake o tātou koe i roto I o tātou mahi ki ngā whakatupuranga o muri mai. We should always think if there's something that we can do that will help to our rangatahi to be engaged in this mahi. What's something that we can leave behind for them to do, to participate in, to help with? Whether it's, it could be training them up to be the maintenance, do the maintenance, or opportunities for them to learn about the rongoa, about the tuna, about the water, about things like that. Point 3, ka whai wā te tau I o Ngāti Hangarau, oh, that's what I was just saying. So there may be times when they can, when we can find apprenticeships for them to help them be engaged in this space. And point 4, me whai whakaro tātou ki te hanga I tehi mea, hei whakahihiri te hinenga o ngā rangatahi. So something that can enlighten, make them excited about this space. It could be the way our colour schemes, it could be some activities that are good for them to do in this space. That's something that we can do for them. Let's do it. 2.8, whitiki tāua hei tamatu, me whai wā ki te noho piri ngā hoa mahi. So there should be times when the people who are working here, the people who are involved in this kaupapa, should be times to allow people to come together. Whitiki tāua hei tamatu is a word, is a line that comes from our oldest karakia and tauranga moana e hika tuake, and it means bind ourselves together as people, as workers. So we need the opportunities to bind. It could be having a barbecue for all the kaimahi, could be having a kai all together like we've done at the coffee club previously. That kind of stuff really helps to make stronger cohesion between the people involved in the project. 2.9, kumea ki te uru ea ki te tonga. This again comes from the same karakia for mobile. Point 1, ko te mahi o ngā patu paere he ue he ka kume ka ue ka karakia ka mahi. So the patu paere he, when they're pulling mobile down to where he is now, they're saying their karakia and they're doing their mahi. They're saying their karakia, they're doing their mahi. So karakia is an important part to do before we do our mahi, as well as while you're doing your mahi. Point 2, ko e waiho mā te wā whakatūwherana ki ngā tikanga karakia. Don't just have a karakia at the start, right at the opening, but there should be times when we can do karakia throughout the mahi, throughout the project. Point 3, me whai whakaro ki nui ki te tapa I ngā ingoa tika I runga I ngā wāhi tika. So naming places, naming spaces, and naming kaupapa. So we still haven't come up with a name for the whole Cycleway yet, but that's something that the hapu need to think about, all the hapu. But regarding places and spaces within our rohe, Ngāti Hangarau should have the final say on those kind of things. We should actively look at naming different places, different spaces within this kaupapa to bring mana to this kaupapa, and hopefully a general iwi-wide naming program will apply to the whole Cycleway rather than just our part of it. 2.10 Kia rongo taku kiri te kikini o te rehutai o ngā ngaru whati te whati e hururu mai nei. May my skin feel the salty spray that comes from the waves as they crash against the shore. So that comes from the same karakia of the patupaere here for Mauao. So point 1, ko kai uta tonu te nui o ngā mahi e tika ana kia whai whakaaro ki ngā waitai o Oreanui, I Oreanui. So Oreanui is the bay just outside there, outside this wetland. And so even though it's not right on the seashore, the connection from the wetland to the sea is a really big part of our identity, who we are. So people often go to the sea to find their aiotanga, to find their peace, their calm. So that connection with this wetland and with the sea should be maintained, and the importance between these two areas, Oreanui and our wetland here, should be whakanui. 2.11 Ka tangi ake kia te mere heni e takoto maira I tairua. This comes from our Ngāti Hangarau tau parapara. It says, I cry to Te Meriheni, which is the name of our ship, that lies at Tairua in the Hauraki. So that was the name of our Hangarau vessel. Ka tiro kiwa hoki te tai ko ngā wai ene e rere ai te waka o Ngāti Hangarau Te Meriheni o na wā. Ka rere ngā ki tōna wāhi takotoranga. So we remember our vessel, our schooner that lies in Hauraki. Ka whaiaronga ki tēnei kaupapa I roto I te pou taurapa ki Pikirangi. So that remembrance is depicted in our taurapa Pikirangi. 2.12 Hoki tika mai ki tītongi ki ngā kōwiwi e moe maira. This comes from our Hangarau tau parapara again. And it says, and then I return back to Tītongi where the bones of my ancestors are lying. So it talks about just up on the hill above this space is our pā Tītongi, where our urupa is, where our tupuna are resting. Point 1 is the Repo is down the bottom and Tītongi is up the top. Point 2, the Repo, the wetland, the swamp, is another place where we used to bury our people. So we need to be wary whenever we're moving dirt, what we're moving, and there should be monitors looking at any kind of movement of soil, just in case we come across something tough. And like koiwi. And point 3, I runga I tērā whakaaro, kāre tika ana kia ruirui, kia waiho noa rani ngā pongarewa o te tūpāpaku I konei. Tangata karehe reini. I hara tēnei wahi te whakaaro ngā tangata noa. So in that regard, even if we find koiwi there, it's not an urupa for anyone. So we do not like people who see, oh, this is a beautiful place, I'm going to scatter the ashes of my loved one here. That is something that is not appropriate at all. Whether it's a loved one family or a loved one pet, that is not appropriate mahi for this area. 2.13 E rongotono anō I te koroki a ngā manu I te kete o te pepe ki te pūpū I te hau I te whirowhiro a ngā rau I te mapo te whenua I a koutou katoa. I can still hear the beautiful song of the bird, the crickets, the insects. I can still hear the sound of the wind. I can still hear the rustling of the leaves. I can hear the yearn of the earth, all of these things. So this comes from one of our waiata that we sing. Point 1, ko ngatu te taio he mea arahi I ngā whakaro ngā tāngata katoa. So we are guided by the signs of that the environment give us. So we need to be able to listen, see, taste, feel, all the signs that are given to us by the environment, whether it's a tree, whether it's a bird, whether it's the wind, whether it's the weather. All those things help determine our strategies going forward. Point 2, me whai whakaro ki ngā momo manu karere katoa ki ngā hau ki ngā rako tiranga whenua noki. Me kimi ara ki te whakapaia ki te noho enei taonga ki tēnei takiwā. So we're talking about our taonga species, the birds, the fish, the tuna, the rako, the plants, the repo, the mud, the paru, all these environmental things, and we need to be able to have a plan in place to look after our taonga. Point 3, we should not be, in all our mahi, we should not be degrading these taonga of our environment. And point 4, that's about Ngāti Hangarau really supports creating a plan to look after our taonga species, tuna, could be koura, and even plans to help restore them and make it even better than it was before, as well as getting rid of pests that may be degrading the environment, pest trees, pest plants, pest animals as well. 2.14, mōku pātu atu o tu moetai o tuatare e tangi apa kura nei. So this comes from our song again. It talks about different wāhi, different pā sites, different kāinga in this area. So we look at, when you stand there at the Carmichael Reserve, you can see various kāinga, various nohoanga that people used to live at, that are wāhi tapu, special sites. If there's the opportunity to hangai, to face towards these things or acknowledge these things, whether it's the chair faces that way to Orea Nui, or the chair faces that way to Matua Iwi, you know, or the path goes this way because there's mobile right there. Those are all important things for us, and if we can hangai our things towards those particular special places, then that's a form of mihi to those particular places. 2.15, ka noho au ka mauri tau, kei konei koutou. So this comes from another song from Ngāti Hangarau. I sit here, I am at peace, because you are with me. Ki te taka ki te he, so it's talking about our tūpuna. If things go wrong, we need to find guidance by the kōrero that our tūpuna have left for us, like what you can see here. So they are always there with us. We need to acknowledge their presence and their memory. 2.16, o ture patua ki runga I te teko teko te whare tū mai nei. This comes from a haka, what was from the 1920s, maybe 1930s, during the Prohibition era. It says, your laws have been slapped upon the apex of my house as if it's important to me. Me whakamohi o mai ngā hōtaka o ngā mahi, kaimahi, ngā whakaritenga katoa kia Ngāti Hangarau kaua tētahi noho kuare. So it's talking about when the law was slapped on the house so that people would know all about it. Well, that's what we're saying. We're saying that we need to know if there's any applicable laws or policies or when things are going to happen, work schedules, so that we know about it, so that we can do whatever we need to do. 217, mahi hamupaka koe anaki. Ture kaunihera koe naha. So, mahi hamupaka, this is humbug work. Ture kaunihera, this is the council's policies. So that comes from the haka. Point 1, te nuinga o wā he hoha te whai ngā ture o te kaunihera. A lot of the time, just being honest, council policies and council, well not just councils, but just all policies and laws are hoha. So we need to realise that those policies and those laws aren't the only way of looking at things, aren't the only way of explaining things. Other people, other hapu, other iwi have other ways, some would say better ways, of looking at things. Point 2. Iehu mai ngā kaupapa te kaunihere mai te aro ngā iwi whānui. Engari, kāre te iwi whānui whai pāngana ki te rohe o. So a lot of the times these policies, these laws apply to the whole, to the whole district or to the whole region, to the whole. But what Ngāti Hangarau is saying is that our tikanga applies specifically to this area. It's the way the moon affects this particular tidal passage is totally different than it would down at Opotiki, for instance. So, so those big overarching New Zealand laws are for all of New Zealand. Ngāti Hangarau tikanga is for right here. Point 3. Ngāti Hangarau hei atu weti ngā tikanga whakahaere kia kite pēna he kaupapa āwhina tō rātou, he mea whakahohā rānei. So Ngāti Hangarau kind of holds the mana to be able to see whether council policies or government policy, government law is actually help or if it's hindering good progress for this kaupapa. 218. E kore piri te uku ki te rino ka whitingia te rā kangahoro. Clay will not stick to steel. The sun will soon dry it out and it will crumble to dust. What's it saying is that here's steel, here's clay. You can't mix them together. So don't try and get a Pākehā tikanga and try and get a Māori tikanga and just go, oh yep, mix it all together. Oh yeah, that's cool now. We can go happy, happy, joy, joy. Because what will happen is that we'll soon find that actually it doesn't stick. The clay will just fall off, or it'll just dry off. So what we're saying is, number 1, kia kaue ngana ki te whakararu i ngā tikanga atu Hangarau, ki ngā tikanga o iti atu. Me whakanuia ngā huatanga motu hake o ona tikanga. So we should acknowledge different tikanga, and we should understand that each tikanga is special in its own right. Some tikanga is more special to this area, some tikanga is more special to that area, or that. Sometimes it's no good to try and just put them together, and it actually waters down this one and it waters down that one, and in the end it doesn't make them very good for anybody. Point 2 pena e tika ana kia noho matua ngā tikanga o te mana whenua me pono kia tika. If it's right that Ngāti Hangarau tikanga should be paramount, well then stick to it. If it's right that other tikanga, other law, other policy should be paramount, we'll stick to that. O tira me whai koha ki ngā tikanga katoa. But all all tikanga should be respected, should have some level of respect. Okay, and this comes to the whakamārama section. So this section just takes other kōrero from our hapu, other guidance from things like our hapu management plan, from our kaumātua, from general tikanga, from people's opinions, and it helps to explain those things. So, he whakamāramatanga one. So, he kōrero mo te rohe, so this is rohe specific. Ko te rohe Ngāti Hangarau he takiwa mana motu hake. So, the Ngāti Hangarau's rohe is Ngāti Hangarau's alone. Ko Ngāti Hangarau tūturu tēnei rohe. This is Ngāti Hangarau. He mea nui me māramanga iwi whakaeke ki te mana whenua o tēnei rohe. So people who come into our rohe need to know that this is Ngāti Hangarau mana whenua. Kei taka rānei rātou ki te pōhehe no rātou ke no e tehi atu ke rānei tētehi mana o roto i tēnei rohe. Just in case they come under the misunderstanding that they have mana or other people have mana in this rohe. No, kia Ngāti Hangarau anake tēnei mana. So only Ngāti Hangarau has mana whenua within te rohe o Ngāti Hangarau. And that's important. He kōrero mo te whenua. Ko te whenua ki Carmichael Road he takiwa paku o roto i te rohe whānui o Ngāti Hangarau. Carmichael Road is only a small part of Ngāti Hangarau's rohe. Ki te whai whakaaro tika ki te whenua kia kaue aro noa ki tēnei takiwa ki te rapu māramatanga o ngā ahuatanga motu hake o te whenua kia Ngāti Hangarau. We can't just look at this little slice of Ngāti Hangarau rohe to gain a good understanding of what the whenua means to Ngāti Hangarau. Me aro hoki ki ngā wāhanga whenua e pātata mai ana. We need to look at the different things around this place. Ko ngā pā, ko ngā urupā, ko ngā papakainga, ko ngā kōawa, ko ngā puke, ko ngā tahatai, ko ngā tāhuna, ko ngā kuru, ko ngā puke, ko wera mea katoa. So the pā, the urupā, the homes, the streams, the hills, the beaches, the sandbanks, the bird nests, all of these things have a place in understanding what whenua means to Ngāti Hangarau. He panga nui toi nei ta ki ngā whenua i Carmichael Road. Kia takiho mai te ua in kia rere o te wai maera paihikara ki te raro ki te repo. So when it rains, the rain comes down from these places and into this repo, the stormwater, the rain comes, so all these places are actually tied in inextricably to the area that we are working. Me marama tātou ki katoa ki ngā hononga ki tēnei takua ki ngā whenua kotoro te te rongo a puta noa. So we should be mindful of the connectedness of the whenua, the different things that are around this area. Kua riro whenua atu me hoki whenua mai. Whenua was taken from us. The only thing that would be sufficient is that if whenua is returned to us. Hako te haka te whaitono Ngāti Hangarau I te whakaokinga mai o ona whenua katoa. No matter what, at the forefront of all our mind and all our mahi, Ngāti Hangarau is looking to get back all our land that was wrongfully taken from us. And that's just straight up. Me whakaokia mai tēnei whenua ki te hapu a ka whakarite he kiri mana rihi kia ma te mare e whakamahi tēnei ara. We're looking for any kind of strategy where we can regain ownership of our lands, and if it means that Hangarau eventually gets this area back into our hapu, and then we create some sort of agreement where the public can use this land in perpetuity, just like Mowal, well, that's something that we're really looking for, and we expect that anyone that we partner with will have some sort of encouragement to work towards that goal with us. He kōrero mo te repo. So this is talking about the wetlands now. Ko te repo he wāhi tūturu I ua I ngā tūpāpaku ki roto. A ko kāre mātou ake kōru mo te tanu I te tūpāpaku ki roto tonu tēnei repo e tika ana kia matāra tātou. So what we spoke about earlier on is that the repo, the wetlands, was one of the original places where we would bury our tūpāpaku. We need to be mindful of that in all our mahi. Ko te repo hoki he wāhi mo ngā mahi ngā kai. So our wetlands is also a place where we gather kai, tuna, koura. It's a place where we gather resources like harakeke, like Repo, all these things. So those things need to be in our mind as we're doing this mahi as well. If there's something that we can do to help to grow these resources, then that's something we'll definitely be keen to look at. Kei roto I te repo e te hirau me he whakamahanga mo te iwi. So we're talking about flax, Repo, muka, wiwi, uku, paru. These are all some of those resources that are really important to us that you find in this particular area. Kōrero mō ngā manuhiri o Ngāti Hangarau. So a big kōrero that came out through our team's rangahau is manuhiri. So what we're doing is we're encouraging people to walk, well, we're creating a path where people just walk through or cycle through or go through our rohe. Now, ko ngā pātai, who are the people who are coming, who are these manuhiri who are coming into our rohe? Where are they from? Hea te take e uru tomo, why are they coming onto this whenua? Why are they coming into our rohe? I roto I ngā whakaritenga tapu o ngā mātua tupuna ko te tikanga kia pōhiri tia ngā manuhiri katoa ki runga I tō mātou tūranga waiwai. Our tikanga, which is supremely important to us, one of our most tikanga that we still abide by, is to welcome any manuhiri onto our marae, into our rohe. So what we're doing, we're creating an access way for people to enter into our rohe, to walk through our rohe. What's really important for Ngāti Hangarau is to look after our manuhiri. And anyone using the Cycleway is our manuhiri, unless they're either us or our manuhiri. So if people come to our rohe from Piriraka, if they come from Ngāti Kahu, they need to know that they've come through the mana whenua of those hapu and then into this mana whenua. Hoi anō ko te mahi nui ki a mātou Ngāti Hangarau ko te tiaki o mātou mahi. Me mohi o ngā manuhiri katoa kei te hikoi rātou I te rohe o Ngāti Hangarau. They need to know that they're coming through Ngāti Hangarau. And what do Ngāti Hangarau do with our manuhiri? We talk to them, we explain things to them, and we also feed them. So the opportunity to be able to feed our manuhiri with kōrero, with kai, with time, with space, those are things that are really important for us as Ngāti Hangarau. How can we incorporate that kind of tikanga manaki manuhiri, looking after our manuhiri, into the mahi that we're doing? So that's something that could really help us to engage our tikanga in a really meaningful way. It could be fruit trees, it could be a picnic area, it could be something, a space where people can relax and rest. But how do we look after our manuhiri coming through our rohe? Moving on. He kōrero mō ngā rākau. So, kōrero for the trees, the plants. He rau me ngā rākau mō ngā mahi a ngā tāngata. Our rākau, our plants and trees, can be resources, can be taonga for our people. He rākau huakai hei whāngai tiwi. Some trees, some plants can provide sustenance to the people. He rākau rongoa mo te tinana me te wairua. Some plants have medicinal values for your body and your spirit. He rākau whakaoroi te taiao. Some plants make the environment better. He rākau rerehua tōnā tāhua. Some plants are really pretty looking. He rākau tohu tohu. Some plants give us direction, give us guidance. So some of the trees, for instance, are good for carving. So we know all those things. So when we're thinking about what kind of plants, those are some of the plants that the hapu have said are good in our whakaaro, our way of doing things. And he kōrero mo te one one, kōrero for the dirt. He tapu te whenua, me noho ngā whenua o Ngāti Hangarau ki roto tūni te roho i Ngāti Hangarau. Ki te kiri, kaua e hariki wāhi kē, no konei te whenua me ita tonu. So, if we're going to be moving dirt, digging dirt, taking dirt, it must stay in our rohe. We can't take our dirt, our mana whenua, the dirt that our tūpuna spilt their blood for, we can't take that and go and dump it somewhere else in someone else's rohe where their tūpuna fought and died for. That's really bad. So if there's any moving of dirt that needs to occur, it should stay within our rohe. It should go somewhere else within our rohe. If not as close as we can to where we originally got it from, then somewhere else that's still in Ngāti Hangarau rohe. If it needs to be taken out of our rohe, it may be tauranga moana, stay within tauranga moana. But the hapu need to know if dirt is coming out of our rohe and leaving our rohe. We need to know in the first instance so we can do what we need to do to that earth. The same thing applies for if earth is coming into our rohe. So you can't just go up to Hauraki and take their soil and then put it here, or take their stones and put it here. Because what does that mean? That means that Hauraki have got an in to our mana. They say, oh, that's our stones, this is our mana whenua now. That's just abhorrent to us. So we need to know that if we're going to be bringing dirt, if we're going to be bringing stones, things like that into our rohe, we need to know where it comes from so that we can do the appropriate tikanga to make sure that it's all right. If we're going to be bringing stones from Hinuera, from Tautaoroa Quarry, we need to know that before it happens, not after it happens. Any kind of earth movement needs to have our kaitiaki there to look at it. Ka pai? Almost at the end now. So we're going into te rohe, just talking about general Ngāti Hangarau rohe. So our rohe starts up in the maunga, the kaimai, and it goes all the way down to Te Awanui, tauranga moana. And the place where a lot of people live is Bethlehem now. Ngai Tamarawaho is on our east, and Wairoa is on our west. Lots of whakapapa connections to these hapu that live around us in the iwi. Te Awanui, tauranga moana, is our seawater, and we have lots of streams and awa and lakes and waterfalls that are really important to us within our rohe. All these pā, these maunga, these urupā, and other wāhi tapu are very special to us. They are not just names on a paper, but they are special land signs to us. They explain our mana over our rohe. And you can find a lot of these kōrero in He Tangina Te Pakaru, which was one of our old chants, and Tākiri Ko Te Ata, which is another chant of ours. Ka takaiho mai te mana whakahaere. So all these different councils have some sort of their mana within our rohe. Ngāti Hangarau sits between the mountains and the river and the sea. For a long time we have occupied these lands. since the arrival of the wakas in Aotearoa. These places, Kaimai, Te Kaki, Pikirangi, o Manoa, Te Paeroa, Hauhainga, are some of the places that our people visited, used, stayed. Talking about Te Hauhainga, 20 metres from Te Hauhainga is our marae. Our whare tūpuna was opened in 1969, and the pare above the door is Te Whaki o Matariki, which is the King's coat of arms, which gives us a very special connection to the kingitanga. Our wharekai was opened in 1972. Here we have a map of our rohe, which is funny because we didn't used to have maps like this. But for post-Treaty of Waitangi settlement, this is a map of our rohe. And this is just another one with our waterways. And so if you have any pātai, any kōrero, the email for the Hapu Trust is hangaropsge@gmail.com. Feel free to email our trust, and we'll get the trust to get back to you as soon as possible. Otherwise, we'll have our hui very shortly. Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou katoa. Kia ora.